This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL, but we're the ones who've encouraged you all along to like and share them on social media and with all your friends and neighbors, because it's all about the science of caring. Carebag presents at this time and every Monday morning after Swap Shop. Careology, the science of caring, with your host, the one and only, let's see, that's Miles McGrath.
Thank you, Cliff. What an awesome introduction. The one and only Miles McGrath.
Well, they threw away the mold after they created it.
Thank you so much. Yes, this is Careology, and it's all about caring. It's about what we do at Carebag to help the community with hygiene, and because we believe at Carebag that everybody deserves the access to proper hygiene, and we do our best from our heart to provide that up along the Treasure Coast and even into the Palm Beaches. I've got a special guest today. I'm going to introduce Katherine Hemsley, but before we introduce her, I want to just remind everybody that Carebag is a nonprofit organization, and through the generosity of our donors, through the generosity of the community, through the generosity of people that support this show, we're able to do the good work that we do at Carebag. And I want to remind everybody, one of the biggest fundraisers we have every year is our annual gala. And on January 20th, we are having our Aloha brunch. It's going to be at the Cape Club in Palm City at 11 a.m. And we every year strive to make it a fun event, to bring awareness to what we do at Carebag. So if you're at all interested in supporting Carebag and having a good time doing it and rubbing elbows with folks on the Treasure Coast that are of like mind, then I encourage you to register for this event. Again, it's Saturday, January 20th. It's the Aloha Brunch at the Cape Club in Palm City. And for more information, you can go to our website, carebagfl.org. So I want to introduce somebody so special. She's on our board at Carebag, and her name is Katherine Hemsley. And the reason I invited her on is the more I found out, the more I discovered the different facets of this individual. I'm like, I have to have her on the show because she does so many things behind the scenes. I said, well, the world needs to know about her and about what motivates her and the little places that she's made a difference. And not just for that, but really to encourage those other folks out there that are of like mind, that want to make a difference. And so I've invited Katherine Hemsley to be on the show. Katherine, thank you so much for being on Careology.
Thank you. As you know, Carebag is one of my passions. My overriding passion is to make sure that every single citizen has whatever they need to be successful. And hygiene is so significant to that it is part of that system of care that is being created in this region.
Well, thank you for that. And I have to ask, how long have you and your husband lived on the Treasure Coast?
We moved here in 1983.
So in 1983, things were a little different. And you live in the Fort Pierce area, right? Or
well, we live in Port St.
You
Lucie.
live in Port St. Lucie.
What used to be a little town.
Right.
And we still say that Fort Pierce is our hometown.
Right.
Because we have been, when we started getting involved with the community, which was in 1983 when we first moved here, everything was running out of Fort Pierce because that was a county seat.
Right.
That's where everything was going on. We found that when we moved here, there were a lot of wonderful people, but there were issues that had not been addressed because they were a heavy lift.
Right.
And we tend to do things that are heavy lifting.
Well, that not everybody has that mentality. Where did that idea or mentality in your heart to help make a difference in the community come from? I have to ask, like, that not everybody's born with that. Like, where did that stem from, or you wanted to be a community organizer and make a difference for these organizations?
My parents were the same. My family were from a small rural area in Illinois, but my mother started the March of Dimes. She helped do the polio vaccine initiative within our region.
Wow.
My dad was part of making sure people got food through the county township. He was on the local school board. It was focused very much on making sure every child had something, even though we only had very, very few kids. He was very involved with that. So they did that. They did things all their lives that for us as small children thought they were sacrificing, but what they were doing was building a community.
So they planted those seeds within inside of you, and you carry those on.
Yeah, we just watched one of our cash crops, because we were farmers, was tomatoes. And so when the tomato pickers came, they were from South Texas. Mom found out where they were living and it was unacceptable. So she created one of her charming fusses to make sure that they actually had appropriate housing while they were with us. We said Dad built a picnic table and set it out under the big maple tree for the people who were walking along the highway who were homeless. And she had a closet of clothes that were useful, but not for us. And so that when somebody came, she made sure they had a sandwich and a fresh shirt.
That is amazing. And you have carried, the torch was passed and you're carrying it on here in Port St. Lucie and Fort Pierce and all the organizations. So 1983, it's just funny you mentioned Texas, because my grandmother grew up, they were sharecroppers in Bryan, Texas. And she shared some stories about what that was like that have always stayed with me.
Well, we were from Illinois, like next to the Mississippi River. And so our family was, I think, very unique in our area. I didn't realize that till I was much older and went away to university because of their passion for the bigger community. And so I have had great privilege. I have an education. I have been loved all my life. I've never been hungry. Although we may have had eggs for 3 meals a day, I never went hungry. And so I have to share because that is my obligation. My obligation is to make sure that everybody I touch comes away from me with a positive attitude or with something they need in their life, even if that may be a hug.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that so much. And I hope that I can do that myself. And we try our best to do that as loving human beings, but sometimes it's very challenging when you're faced with certain things, but I really appreciate that. So I was thinking kind of the theme for today would be, we started in 1983 and now we're in 2023. I want to ask you, what are some of the, you think about this, initiatives that you've seen bear fruit compared to when you got here in 1983 that you are so grateful that have made a difference in the community? Could you share a couple of those that you experienced?
One thing was education is my passion. We were both educators. And so when we came here, there were kids who were, in our opinion, being pretty much ignored and underserved. As you were poor, no matter what your race was, if you were poor, you had a cap on what you could do. So when I first got on the school board in '96, the graduation rate for Black boys was about 55%. It's now 98%. So it was changing the matrix that you look at individual children.
What a difference.
You look at
Wow.
that, and they have to each have a plan going forward. We are a Kids at Hope community. That hope is not a plan, but if you don't have hope, you will not create a plan for your future.
That's the motivation for the
Right.
plan, right?
So when we decided that that was going to be our focus as our community, and the county commission passed a resolution, the cities did, the school district led the charge with our roundtable and our Children's Services Council, which we put together 28 years ago, no longer than that, I think. Anyhow, we decided that we needed to change our focus. And so we quit talking about kids at risk. And we talked about kids at hope, because when you build on their strengths, their negatives start falling down and down and down. And then making sure that every child had somebody that was their mentor, whether it be a teacher, the librarian, the janitor, whoever within that school, that they felt safe there. So we started doing things very differently.
So changing the label
Yes.
was the seed. Mentorship,
Right.
another seed.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Well, then we started a whole department to make sure that we had the first eyes. New Horizons has a student assistance program, which is funded by Children's Services Council. They are stationed in all this in the schools. And what they do are the first eyes for confidential discussion for kids. So we can make sure that they have services they need before they go into the deep end and get into crisis. And we started with Children's Services Council, the baby home visitation program, because we found that we had a huge gap. So
a baby visitation program is a new mom comes home with their child. Is that what we're talking about?
Correct. Any baby that's born to a St. Lucie County mom, okay, within the first 5 days, they get a home visitation from a pediatric nurse. That nurse makes sure the mom's okay, the baby's doing okay, and that the dad is not overly frustrated. And if there's an issue, then we have a scope of services that have been created to make sure they get what they need, whether it be a crib for the baby, whether it be a car seat for the baby, whether it be assistance for the mom. We've actually saved several moms' lives over the last few years by making sure they got the health care they needed early on. And we've saved a couple of dads from going over the edge by giving them, we have a father initiative to make sure they get what they need to be a good role model and to be the best helper they can be.
There's a lot of integration that has to take place between the different offerings there. That doesn't just happen out of thin air. How often does this group get together to decide what's needed so that all these services are coming to place and everybody's playing on the same, like how does that even happen?
Well, the Children's Services Council is an independent taxing authority. And I was chair for, 20 years, long time. And we decided that the best thing to do was not to give little bits of money to a bunch of different organizations, but to build collaboration. And start building a system of care, so that we have a system of care, and they get together, the groups that are funded, there's 52 different programs. They get together on a regular basis, have coffee, and share what they're doing so they can build on each other's programs. So it's not about competition, it's about building that system.
Because the end goal is better, healthier children doing and building the community.
Correct.
Everybody can agree on that, right?
Yeah, correct.
One of the baseline statistics that you shared with me a couple of weeks ago was the infant mortality rate. Has this program made a difference in that? I mean, because that's a terrible thing we don't want to talk about, but it really is the acid test of effectiveness. Yeah. Share that rate where we're at now, where we were then, and where are we today?
Well, we have a very, very good Healthy Start program, which is extremely underfunded. So with a collaboration, we were able to do some things that nobody could do on their own. The statistics for Black babies dying within the first year was extremely high. We're much, much higher than the state. So we found that babies that were being born, in Port St. Lucie, let's say, or at Martin Health or wherever, they had like a 98% visitation rate. And so they were able to get those services early on. And the HCA in Fort Pierce, which is a fantastic hospital, but they had all these mothers sign up. But because there was a lack of trust, they would let the nurses into their home when they went there. So what we started was a program where there is someone through the health department funded by Children's Services Council. There's actually a cadre of them that actually hold their hands basically through their pregnancy, through their delivery, and then afterwards. And we've been seeing that number go up to the high, I think it's over 80% now of home visitations. So we have dropped that number of babies that have been in crisis or actually died down to very, very low single-digit numbers. And the mothers have been down. We're fine. I think I was told 5 mothers' lives within the last 2 years because of the health care they received within that first 5 days after they went home.
All because people are collaborating along the system here.
Correct.
Wow.
It is heavy lift to get people to come out of their silos and work together. But that system of care is what's making first of all, our kids healthier, our families stronger, and the Carebag is part of that system of care. And so when we made sure that Carebag is on that emergency list with emergency
Yes.
operations and for recovery, it is essential that that organization is integrated into our bigger system of care. And we can do that pretty much seamlessly now because of the working relationships that have been built over the last 20 years.
Wow. It's incredible. It's so simple, yet it just takes time and effort and consistency to maintain those relationships
Right.
and keep them going and build awareness. And what are some of the aha moments you've had over the years where you thought it was one way and you realize, oh my gosh, it's really this way, and we can work with that? Or what are some of those moments where you kind of thought it was one way and then it kind of, oh, it really is like that, we can do this? What was some of the breakthroughs you've had?
Well, I think with our free clinic, at one point and a few years ago, we were considering selling off some of our equipment to pay staff. So it's like, if you can't solve it one way, you have to look at it a different way to do that, because rules sometimes get in your way. So you have to find a set of rules that you can follow. So it's like, okay, well, we can figure this out. How do we figure this out? Well, first of all, you get the right people at the table. You get people that are visionaries. You get people who believe in collaboration. And so it's like, okay, we don't have to do that after all, because now we could do it this way.
There's another possibility.
Yes, another possibility. And
Yes.
Economic development was one issue that, we had years ago, we had over 13% unemployment rate. So we had a committee. I was vice president of the chamber at the time for community betterment, which is kind of what I kind of like. Anyhow, so we had this meeting. Okay, what are we going to do? Well, let's put together a plan. So everything on that plan came to resolution except the housing component. The healthcare component is still out there, but it's being addressed because of that collaboration. But the housing component is right now the big bugaboo, because our unemployment rate is very, very low. And so the housing issue, but it's like, so nobody said we could do that. So we're setting a meeting in Tallahassee, and this person from Jacksonville basically said, well, you can't do what you did in your county. And so it's like,
from Jacksonville, they're trying to tell
St.
Lucie County.
Yeah. So let me share how you could do that. It is many years of consistent focus and the right people in the seats who share that vision.
Yes.
And you can't put yourself in there. You can't have your personal agenda. You can't have an expectation of your name going on a building. You have to do what's right for a community, and you get those people together and you move forward.
I just saw this image of one of those boats you see in the Olympics where they're all rowing together. And can you imagine them, if one guy's rowing at a different rhythm or something? There's no way they're going to do it. I guess they call them sculls or something, those big long boats. It's just, that's the image that came. But when you're all rowing together, those things can fly, So that's kind of what you're saying, is when you get a committee together with the same passion and same direction, even if the viewpoints are different, we're sharing ideas, not criticizing, but we're kind of like, oh, what's the best idea? It's almost like, we're getting progress. That's beautiful. It seems like too much common sense.
And when you can have the ability to get people who take the personal ego out of it,
right,
you can do amazing things. So with one organization, one year I wrote 8 thank you for your service letters for people who didn't seem to have share the mission of the organization.
I see what you're saying, yes.
Okay. And so it's really important that we have the right people to do that. And most of these organizations that we do deal with actually do have the right people who have an understanding of how everybody working together can actually change their own personal life, but changes the community as a whole. And when you change the community as a whole, then everybody benefits.
Yes. Yeah, what they say, the rising tide raises all ships.
Right.
All ships there.
Yep.
What you talked about housing. What are some of the things you see on the horizon that would make a difference for the housing situation in St. Lucie County?
Well, I think our county here is actually starting to address that more robustly. But we need to have a way for people to be able to afford the rent so they can live where they work, in proximity to where they work. And that's a mixture of housing designs. And like my street has a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, and then there's a kind of a mini mansion. So, that type of infusion of different types of housing so that everybody has a comfortable place to be. The school district has a relocation program, and we worked with the Chamber of Commerce years ago so that people could pay the rent. They couldn't pay the first last deposit.
Right.
So we came up with a scheme at that time to allow that to happen, that they got a letter from the district that they were employed. This is their salary. And so that they waived that first last deposit. They just had to pay the first. And that kind of went away. But I think that type of thing needs to come back, where we work with our partners to make sure that people can find the right housing, especially if they have a job where they can actually afford to pay.
You're part of Impact 100, and the Impact 100 is all along the Treasure Coast, but the
Right.
one here in St. Lucie County, the award winner was it Mustard Seed, right?
Right.
And they do that very thing. They work with people that are employed, but for whatever reason they've been given a curveball or whatever it is, and they research it and they help them kind of make that bridge
Exactly.
on there. And so they were the recipient this year. So there are things out there that help
Right.
people with that, but it is an issue.
Well, we had the fiscal cliff issue. A fiscal cliff issue where some manufacturer came to me and said he couldn't get this really good employee to take a pay raise because then he was going to lose all of his services.
We're gonna talk about the physical cliff here in a little bit, but Cliff, speaking of Cliff, is going to take us into a commercial break. Thank you, Cliff.
You're listening to Careology, the science of caring, and Miles and his guest will be right back.
Thinking of building your next home or renovating? Come see us at Grozer Builders. We will create a home suited for your lifestyle. With years of experience means we give you a complete professional service from a dream to a concept. You will get the best results, best value, best quality is what you get from Grozer Builders. Visit us at grozerbuilders.com. You deserve better. You deserve Grozer. Why call 2 men in a truck of the Treasure Coast? You want to move your business without moving a single meeting? You want it handled with no fuss. Lots of stuff, no time to move it? You need the pros that care. That's why you call 2 men in a truck of the Treasure Coast. Family owned and operated franchise. Call 772-236-0827. 772-236-0827. Movers who care. Visit 2 Men in a Truck, treasurecoast.com. Create custom business signage that customers can't miss or resist. Let Design a Sign in Port St. Lucie help you get the job done right. Over 80 years combined experience. Get it right the first time. Call 772-337-4027 and tell them Roxy said to call. Remember, call 772-337-4020. Design a Sign in Port St. Lucie. Hi, this is Roxy from Careology, and I just want to talk about volunteering. Volunteers don't necessarily have the time, but they have the heart. It takes courage and dedication to offer your time and skills to help out a cause that is a noble act that deserves recognition. Volunteering is a great way to make a difference in our community, and Carebag needs your help. We are looking for dedicated volunteers. So please get a pen, get a paper, and take down this number. It's 772-222-7399. Call us and let us know you're interested. We are looking for volunteers for the evening hours between 5 and 8 p.m. to go to our soup kitchens with our new mobile hygiene pantry. I look forward to hearing from every one of you. And remember, volunteers don't necessarily have the time, but they have the heart. Thank you.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
We now return to Careology, presented by Carebag and hosted by Miles McGrath.
You, Cliff, so good to be back. And again, I'm here with Katherine Hemsley, and we were talking about some of the great things that have changed along the Treasure Coast, some impacts that have happened. And now we're kind of switching gears to talk about the housing and this income cliff. So what is that, the cliff, when you talk about that?
Well, a fiscal cliff is like you get a 50-cent an hour raise, and that puts you over the threshold to get child care subsidy, to get different other things from the government to help you be successful. And so what the decision was made, well, let's see if we can find some money. So through a Kellogg grant, Children's Services Council, Early Learning Coalition, and Workforce, Career Source now, I'm sorry, there's a program. It's not been 5 years yet. It takes 5 years to get true statistics. But the goal was to help people move up in their employment, take those pay raises, and build their career without losing all their services on day one.
Gotcha. So
as their money goes up, the services go down.
Right.
Okay? Not the services themselves, but their costs, the subsidized cost goes down. So the goal is to get them totally off of subsidized childcare and subsidized health care, that sort of thing, over a 5-year period while they're building their career.
Well, makes sense.
And so we found that that people taking the pay raise and losing their child care subsidy, that we were concerned there were too many children who were not being in the right place, that are 2, 3, 4 years old, that were not in the right place to be safe and nurtured. So it's a win-win for our kids. And as you know, kids tend to be mostly my focus. So right now it's showing great promise. And St. Lucie County was only one of 3 places in the country who received that grant to do that study. And so I'm very, very hopeful that that will be a model, that there's a way to help people build their careers, take pay increases, and decrease the subsidy over time.
So Kellogg had a grant. They put this idea together. When is the 5 years?
5 years, I think this is year 3.
Year 3. Is there any preliminary, little hints at what's happening?
Well, right now it looks successful, but it's a small group because it's kind of a pilot program.
Right.
And if the statistics are acceptable to the funders after the end of 5 years, then we think we'll be able to expand on it.
Wow.
And if not, we'll figure it out.
Wonderful things are happening here in St. Lucie County. So that affects everything, right? Because if you're on assistance, you can get that pay raise and still not cut the valve,
completely.
Completely. It builds the confidence, and then other things are going to happen.
Right.
Housing becomes the rent isn't surmountable, it's surmountable at that point, and all the good things start happening.
So there are things that, we had a very large gang program.
What is a gang program?
Well, we had when we did the study in 1998, I think it was, we had over 2,000 kids between the ages of 14 and 20 that self-identified as being active in a gang.
Right.
So we put together, that can't happen, that can't stay that way.
Right.
So we brought it down. So it's a matter of a couple of hundred kids. And so that's right now is being an intercession too. But what we had to fight with that is the people who do the gang best tend to be felons. So you can't hire felons for certain things. So we had to change our mindset on how we could hire these people.
So you were hiring people to go in to turn the minds around to bring awareness to the dangerous path people were going on by joining a gang.
Right.
And those are the folks that could speak their language, so to speak.
Right.
But you couldn't hire them at first because they were felons. So you were in a catch-22. What was the breakthrough on that?
The breakthrough on that is some of these young men didn't know they were felons because they had not been adjudicated in the regular order because they were like 14 years old.
Right.
So it was a trip to Tallahassee for a conversation. Anyhow, that program has shown great merit, and the school district stepped in and said, well, let's change, they're recruiting kids in middle grades. So we changed the start time for middle schools to later. So we have a preschool program and an after-school program, but they started to change the start time. We also instituted a countywide dress code because we found that some of the things that were going on were carrying the flags of the gangs. So we put in a dress code to alleviate that. The first year we put the dress code, we thought there'd be a lot of pushback. We had 2 kids who fussed from one family. So there was no pushback really. And that seemed to change a lot. And then we're getting these young men who had experience with what was really going on with gangs to talk to these kids, go on the streets and talk to people on the streets.
Right.
Shifted things significantly. When we moved to Port St. Lucie, there were multiple gangs in Port St. Lucie, and they have been mitigated. And so the focus was in Fort Pierce because they were coming often to Fort Pierce to do their orneriness. So that's shifted.
I like how you said that, orneriness.
So
you don't want to get in the middle of the orneriness.
So we brought the numbers down. The population of kids is more than doubled, but the number of kids that are actively in gangs is down to about a tenth of what they were.
So there you go, a victory.
Yeah.
But let's keep it going.
We got to keep it going.
We got to keep it going.
Yeah.
So my takeaway there is communication. Here we have the issue. Let's brainstorm some solutions.
Right.
We have some roadblocks. Okay, let's go back to why we're doing this, because we realize gangs are causing the issue. Let's have the right people share the real experience about being in a gang and what that means and why you want to think twice before you do that. And oh, by the way, that did have an impact, and we don't have to identify while we're at school with our colors. So let's create a certain code that we're going to abide by while we're in school and not represent.
Right. And
while we're in a place of learning, let's not represent. So that's beautiful.
Our executive roundtable stepped in, and because of the matrix that was put together, a federal grant came through that helped to pay for that initiative to have some of that success that it's had. So it's and that's an initiative that's been shared now nationwide.
That came out of this area.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like starting stuff.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. But there's a lot of pieces in there, and so we're getting near Thanksgiving, so there's a lot of gratitude. Somebody had to write the grant.
Right.
A team probably had to come together to do that.
Exactly.
So, people had to argue and fight about things to get to the right piece, and many meetings and late night hours, I'm sure, had to take place, and people, like you said, had to look at things differently and change the rules a little bit to fit, to make it possible. It's phenomenal. This thing can happen.
It is. The executive roundtable in this county is very robust. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's
tell us.
Representative from all funding agencies and service agencies, foster care, county, both cities, the sheriff department, the police departments, the fire department, Department of Children and Families, Department of Corrections. There's 25 of them. Early learning, healthy start. I have to go around the room.
Please go around the room.
Children's Services Council, the managing entity. So there's all these people sitting around the table, and somebody brings them an issue. And often what we found is you can't just bring them a problem. You bring them an issue with possible solutions.
Gotcha. So share something, a couple of things about this roundtable. How often does the roundtable meet?
They meet once a month.
Okay. What is the last month? What was some of the things that have come up to this roundtable that have been talked about?
They talk about big issues, and I can't tell you I don't know what happened exactly last month. They canceled the meeting.
Okay. Well, previous
But
meetings.
Things that have come out of the roundtable have been significant initiatives that deal with the gang task force being one, Youth leadership being another one, to have kids design programs for.
It's funny you're reading my mind, because I was going to ask you what the average age is on the round table.
Oh gosh, they're probably 70 plus.
Okay, which we have to start thinking about the next generation. Who's going to be? You have to build the round table for the future. So that was,
Right.
hearing about this youth and letting them know that one day you're going to be at the round table.
Right.
Like planting that seed of possibility that, yeah, we're at the round table now, but we need to pass this torch eventually. We need to make sure you're sitting here at the round table. So that's happening.
Right. So that part of youth leadership training
Right.
is very important. We have a cadre of kids that actually presented a transportation plan to this county, which
What?
which by the
A
way,
cadre of kids that presented a transportation
Yes.
plan to the county. I have to hear more about this.
right.
Tell me.
And I was on the local coordinating board for transportation for the disadvantaged, as well as the county and state board for transportation. Their program, in great measure, eventually became part of the big 25-year plan. And so the expansion of mass transit in St. Lucie County, where everybody gets to ride free because of some grant opportunities, and part of that, those kids initiative had part of that. That has increased the ridership, and if he has increased ridership, we have increased routes. So now there are more and more people can ride the blue bus.
Wow.
And so I had a ruling from Atlanta, from the federal government, regarding all of our kids can ride the blue bus. People on the blue bus can't necessarily ride the yellow buses, but they get the other way around. So they're working on a potential plan for after-school programs for kids to be able to get a bus home, because some of our parents are so restricted with their personal transportation. So that's not there yet, but the expansion of that is going on.
We certainly have some traffic in St. Lucie County. This show, just for the listeners, I almost didn't get here on time. There was a accident on I-95. We're grateful that didn't look like anybody was hurt that bad, but everything was stopped. So I'm grateful I made it to the show today. Oh my goodness. So there is a lot to be grateful for there. What's something else that the roundtable has discussed that has kind of come to a positive outcome that you can remember?
Well, some things they have discussed have not come to a very positive outcome, but they were part of the discussion about the Kellogg grant.
Right.
They don't have an active component as such, but they were part of that discussion. The Executive Roundtable has been the facilitator for our Kids at Hope program. And
what is the Kids at Hope program?
Rick Miller out of Arizona, University of Arizona, had this focus about if you start talking about children and actually things in a different manner, you start talking about the assets instead of the negatives.
Right.
You can change that mindset, and you can change the life of a child, but you can also change a community. So the roundtable became the facilitator of that, and they have employees that organize Kids at Hope events in the schools and in the community to show the positive impact of what's going on. So like at the beginning of the school year, they do tunnels of hope. And so we have people from every place that go to the different schools and welcome kids back to school and tell them they can be successful and work on that. There was an issue with the fire department, found out that we had kids that didn't have appropriate shoes to start school. So the fire chief at that time, it was a conversation. The fire department picked it up. Now we have Little Feet. And what they do is a fundraiser, and they buy shoes for kids.
Wow.
So that all the kids could have good shoes at the beginning of the year. And then we found that, well, kids' feet grow. So now they get shoes later on also. And that's a very big program, but that was a conversation about what do we do? What do we do about homeless kids? Well, school district has a closet, those conversations about what, and somebody in that group in great measure will go, oh, well, we can help with that.
It really is an amazing story when you're able to voice a need, how the group dynamic somehow comes together and somebody comes up with a solution.
Yep.
But the first step is ask.
Correct.
And you have to have the courage to say, here's the issue. I'm asking for help. And the group comes together and says, we can do this.
Right.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And I've seen it in when you're in a group, like I'm involved with a lot of networking groups, somebody will stand up and say, I'm having an issue with X, Y, and Z. And I've yet to have that be voiced, and somebody didn't have a very viable solution.
But you have to be willing to share, but you also have to be willing to listen, because some people will bring ideas that you would never have thought of on your own.
Exactly.
And that's that group dynamic, especially when you have the right people who all have the same focus.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be individual. It's just a focus of the betterment of my community and betterment of my kids and families, right?
Yes.
And how do we go for that? And so when they bring something up, there is no criticism.
So that's one of the guiding rules, is somebody will bring up an idea, don't criticize it right off the forefront. Right.
Yeah. There's no criticism. There may be that may not be the issue that you really need a solution to, whatever. But for our Children's Services Council, when we start putting things together, we found that we have certain categories that need to be addressed. And so it was like, well, we need an after-school program. Well, let's create an after-school network of programs and help those programs grow so more kids have access with a sliding scale of payment. So if you can pay the full freight for the after-school program, great. But if not, we have your back. And this is how we have your back. And so we've been able to grow the after-school network I think Children's Services Council last year said they reached 63,000 kids, not just in after school, but with school nurses, with helping with early learning, with all those different things. So meeting 63,000 of the approximately 70-some thousand kids in this county through the collaboration organized by one organization is pretty fantastic.
That is very fantastic. So awareness, to me, I think, is one of the, I don't know if you would agree, but I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges, is people aren't aware either of the size of these different issues. Number one, if you're just going about your normal day and you're struggling to make your own ends meet and make your mortgage payments and all those things, you're not even aware there's a segment of the population that is struggling. So that's one piece, right? Making that awareness. But on the flip side, I feel like the other piece is the awareness of the person that's in the situation is unaware of these areas where they can get help.
Correct.
And
Yes.
I would you agree with those two?
I agree with that.
How do you change the awareness on both sides of that?
I think we need a robust 211 program. And through, you know what 211 is?
211 is like an information hotline,
Right.
right?
So it's our suicide prevention hotline. It
Right.
does, okay. With the children's movement that we started quite a few years ago, the big focus was to do a statewide campaign so that there was one phone number for any parent to call to find out what they needed. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to give you a number for you to call from here. No,
Right.
I'm taking your information and somebody's going to call you.
Right.
Okay. That never did work statewide because it had to be funded, and
Right.
it didn't get funded appropriately. But that number is a number that needs to be on the top of everybody's list.
211.
If you call 211, somebody at the other end of that line is an expert that can take the information and tie you up with mental health, with potentially a healthcare issue, with the families of the Treasure Coast, and help with a parental issue. In years past, it used to be even help with your kids' math type thing. So,
Wow.
and they are very underfunded, and they are an excellent staff.
So if you're talking to Santa Claus in Tallahassee, or I mean, yes, in Tallahassee, you would ask that. That would be one of the things on your wish list, is to have some more funding for 211.
That would be, yes.
What else is on your wish list?
Just the understanding.
Because we're going to put it out there, let the universe provide here. So you audience are the magic that can happen here. So Catherine, I think, has got a pretty good hand on the pulse. She's going to ask for some other things out there. What other? Give me a couple more you would put on your wish list.
Well, it's almost all about funding, because you can't hire the right people if you can't pay them. So mental health is a big issue, and it's one of my big issues, and one of our community's big issues. We did the ACEs. ACEs is a test of 10 questions that you give somebody to find out what kind of trauma they may have had in their life. And it is astounding how many people have had trauma in their life. They
I
may
think
not
we've
need
all
a-
had some worse than others, but
Exactly.
we've all made it through the birth canal, and that wasn't easy.
So some of the questions are like, do you have have you had a parent in prison or jail? Have
Right.
you, that type of thing. And when we found out the numbers, it was astounding. And so that appropriate funding for the first line services is really critical to keep people from ending up in New Horizons Hospital itself.
Right.
Okay, that is a funding issue. And there is a need to start talking differently and more positively about educators, about healthcare workers, about the results of good mental health intervention.
Yes.
That is my biggest wish list, is people to start talking in a different way so that we can force the hands for the funding to make sure we get the people in the right seats.
Give me an example of talking in a positive way about that population that you're talking about.
Well, it's instead of saying there's, they have mental illness, we're talking about brain health. And
What a difference. So it's like someone say there's something like, I have a deformed knee. No, I have a issue with my knee. It's like,
yes,
it's like,
exactly. So sometimes the words really do.
Right.
I suggested to previous governor that I wanted to be the chair of the oxymoronic terminology department. He kind of laughed because then I realized he didn't know what I was talking about. But anyhow, and part of that is that we changed our language, and we changed the language. We create a different mental image.
Right.
And the different mental image may take us a long way.
You're so spot on there. It is about mindset, because part of the people I work with are salespeople, and we have this mental image of salespeople that we're bad or dishonest or whatever, and the person that's in that career thinks they are that way because of just the mentality of it. But we all carry around these false images of ourselves, even within each population you're talking about. That part of it is the core where everything starts, that mindset. Like, how do I talk about myself, and how can that translate to that other people that I view? And just that one piece, do they have a mental illness, or is there just something going on in the brain, like it's that needs help? Like, that's a total shift.
It is.
Wow.
So brain health is health. It should be part of all the healthcare issues. Years ago, we fought for kids to have dental care.
Right.
Okay, well, I made a lot of trips to Tallahassee. I'm kind of over that. But we wanted that to be part of kid care, the healthcare program.
Right.
So we got, St. Lucie County was the big push. And we finally got that incorporated.
Dental care.
So then we found out all these kids that are having trouble at school because they have bad teeth. They hurt, right? So what do we do about that? Well, let's figure out a way to fund dental care for little people. And we did. In 7 years, going back to look at the statistics, it is phenomenal, the change.
My cousin's husband is a dentist. He shared a statistic with me that people that floss their teeth daily live an average of 10 years longer. I'm like, it totally blew my mind. And you could argue it from different directions, but the fact is that people that floss their teeth live 10 years longer. So that is an astonishing statistic. So spot on, teaching those good behaviors when you're young adds 10 years to your life, which you can't wrap your mind around. You could say, well, the people can afford this. The fact is that people that foster, you can't argue with it.
So there's no candy at school.
Good.
There are no soda and soda machines at schools.
Wow.
There, things had to shift.
Yeah.
Kids get to brush their teeth at school.
Wow.
So then we took the program down to tinier people.
Nice.
Down to preschool, 3 and 4 year olds. And so we had a multilingual pediatric hygienist that went to all these schools, and then Children's Services Council paid for portable chairs. And so that whole thing has shown.
So when you say
phenomenal
portable
progress.
chairs, portable dental chairs?
Yes, for kids.
And you brought dentists into the schools to to look at the
We
kids?
brought the hygienist into the school, and then we had a cadre of dentists. If there was a real serious problem, then we had a cadre of pediatric dentists, which are very rare, by the way,
Wow.
and a lot of conversations and lots of coffee.
Wow. Well, in our last minute, is there one quick other wish you'd like that to get funded? One other thing that we can end with?
Gosh, just one thing?
Yeah.
I think that because we're on Careology,
1 minute. Go ahead.
Careology deserves the respect and the support of this community because of the mark it is making and serving a group of people with a need that most people didn't even know existed.
So you're basically saying you'd like another shower unit
I would
for
like
Care.
another shower unit.
Okay,
yes, I would.
I'm on board with that. And thank you so much, Katherine, for being on the show. Thank you for being on our board. Thank you for all the efforts and collaborations that you've done over the years, and I know there's many years to come. This has been Careology. I'm Miles McGrath. Hope you all have a great day and a great week.
You've been listening to Careology, the science and art of caring. Tune in every Monday morning in the 10 o'clock hour for Careology, presented by Carebag. Visit their website, click the QR code on your screen if you're watching an archive on video. This is WPSL for St. Lucie.